Okay, so in this section, we're talking about cause mapping. So ultimately, we're trying to take a problem and figure out what the cause was. How did we get to this point? How did we get to this end result? And where we often fall short is what do we need to do moving forward to ensure that this problem does not happen again? And that kind of gets into the root cause side of it. Again, if I put on, my IT hat in problem solving, one thing we would often do if we had an unexpected system outage was afterwards we would all sit down and say, what caused this outage? Where did it all come from? What was the narrative? Once we figured that out, we would then go back and look at our existing processes and say, okay, of our processes, did we follow them? And if we did follow them and we still had a system outage, that might indicate that we've got something wrong with our process that needs to be changed. If we didn't follow them, why didn't we follow them? And what do we need to do to ensure adherence to process? Okay. So again, asking that question of ultimately why, if you will, and I'll give you an oversimplified example, which seems inherently obvious, but I repeat this often. If I look in, when I teach undergrad classes, typically an undergrad class will be 16 weeks long, and usually the students have an assignment every single week. And each individual assignment in and of itself is not worth an abundance of points. So it's real easy for a student to miss an assignment and not see their grades suffer too significantly in the grand scheme of 16 weeks, 16 assignments, a pretty hefty midterm exam, a large final project. Well, suddenly we reach week 10, 11, 12, down to that last quarter of the semester, and suddenly the student appears in my office and they state the problem. Okay, the problem is I'm not performing well in your class, or sometimes even more vague, I don't have a good grade in your class. Why? So we start to look at that causal analysis, right? I go back in the grade book and say, well, you didn't turn in 6 assignments. Okay, yes, but I'm not happy with my grade in your class. Well, you're not happy with the grade in the class because you didn't turn in 6 assignments. Well, why didn't you turn in 6 assignments? Well, I didn't have time. Okay, so then we start to break it down and go, well, why didn't you have time? And get into that micro level of kind of dissecting the day and go, okay, well, you said you spent 2 hours watching a movie, you spent 3 hours playing video games, you spent 2 hours with your friends. Could we cut into some of that time and perhaps dedicate it to homework? So starting to get into that true cause of how we got to where we are. And then ultimately, our process. What are we going to change with our process to ensure something's different? Well, unfortunately, usually by the time we have this conversation, it's too late, right? There's a few weeks left in the semester, but a lot of points have already passed us by. But when we look at the process, it's moving forward. I need to allocate more time every week towards the work. Okay, so that's where we kind of get into that cause and effect, if you will. Root causes: I didn't put in the time, I didn't submit the work. The outcome was an unsatisfactory grade in the eyes of the student.